I'll be able to edit out the beginning. Okay. Ready, set, go. Hello, everybody. Bill Pluck here with another edition of Garage Talks Not in the Garage. We are in Boulder, Colorado, North Boulder to be exact, near Michael Stone's house, who's sitting on our right. And we have Russ Chandler sitting on my left, your right probably. Anyway, why are we talking to these two gentlemen is probably your question. If you don't know, Michael owns Colorado Multisport, Russ owns Full Cycle, and pretty soon they're going to be under one roof. And we want to find out why. And let's learn a little more about these two gentlemen and talk about this pretty cool merger in a really unique place to do it, and get kind of peek behind the curtains as to what's going on, how it's going to happen, why it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and get to know you guys a little bit better, if that sounds okay to you. All right, cool. Well, let's start with the real obvious question, maybe, and whoever wants to answer. When did this vision start to work together, and why are you doing it?
Was that a vision joke, Bill?
Maybe. Is it the blind
leading
the blind?
You got a guide dog sitting right here. So I'll start.
I think vision is really what drove it.
Yeah.
And frankly, that's a good.
There was
good word.
A great. There's a lot of great quotes in the visually impaired world that you don't have to have sight to have vision, and I've always liked that. It's been said by many before me. One thing in particular is that I approached Russ, a long while ago. So pre-COVID, nothing that has to do with COVID. In the spirit of, there was several things that I liked about his business and the synergies there. For one thing, and Russ will speak for it himself, is that both of us come from a professional career outside of the cycling industry. We both, independent of each other before we even knew each other, chose to go into this business in an effort to do something very, very positive and embrace a community that was very, very important. And we can talk about the history of Colorado Multisport and separate from that of and Full Cycle, it's his own extremely rich history. And the idea is that watching the cycling industry in many ways that people could talk about it, its challenges and its opportunities, but Boulder is such a unique community in that we have more athletes per capita than probably anywhere else, and it's just in this very, very confined area. I mean, we live in a town and in a state that's full of a bunch of superheroes. Everywhere from the professionals all the way down to to age groupers, amongst anything, and the same thing in the cycling world. And one thing in particular is how do you make the most of an opportunity, whether or not there's some adversity there or not. That's what we're aiming for, and so the conceptually, for me, it was really over the last couple of years. I wanted to talk to the local owners, bike shop owners specifically, and see where they were, see where what were their opportunities, what were their challenges, and over those conversations to find out that there's a lot of similarities, and so conceptually, what can happen, what would happen if we were to join forces, and in an effort to create a better product, a better service for a wider community. And that's that was the essence. And we can talk about why in a triathlon store, in a niche store, and versus your everything store, and how best to do it. But the idea here, and it really became important to me, to find a way to come up with something very constructive, and how to embrace the opportunities that were inherently there, and this is what came from it. So
I mean, you guys are, of the two people I know in this industry, probably the two of the most outwardly community-oriented people. I mean, Russ, you run, you're on the board of the Cyclists for Community. you're very big on advocacy. Your shop's got a lot of events. You have a good team, and of course, Michael, your stores can be a lot of events. And particularly when the triathlon season's around, you have seminars and you have people coming to your store. Do you think that was the real key to making this happen because you guys are both focused in that similar way?
Well, I think that that's a component of it, for sure. Both of us, by taking that tack, have it's a function of having come from outside on other industries. He was in hospitality, I was in tech, and on the tech side of things, I mean, it's all about kind of projecting a vision. Like when you're in a I'm used to businesses that grow really fast and put all your efforts into growing, and you have funding, and the whole thing. And so you have to always be talking ahead of where you actually are in terms of the vision you're putting out there. And so when I acquired Full Cycle, I wasn't looking to buy a bike shop when I acquired Full Cycle.
That was 2016, right?
2016, yeah. 2015, 2016. But because of the relationship I built up with their owners, who helped me when I first started the Cyclists for Community organization, when we did the Cyclists for Jamestown event.
Oh yeah.
I got to know them, and they volunteered, and so that led to me getting involved in some other parts of the cycling industry. I did a little work with Catalyst Communication with my friend Lynn Geisinger,
Yep.
who Leslie Baum's firm that they started. So we worked on a pretty cool publication, which ultimately actually led me toward 303 Cycling and some interest in trying to collaborate there. And we got a few things going, and then before you came along,
took it out from underneath you?
No, not at all. I think it was Chris and I had left it in a corner for a while. And look, someone picked it up. How can I help? Actually, it was Dana that jumped in first. And anyhow, so the community side of it is huge, right? I look at it from the standpoint of the internet economy. I look at a bike shop. When I first went to a bike shop, I was scared. I was like, I didn't know much, and those guys were all smart, and they all knew everything, and I just didn't feel, I felt inadequate, right? I thought, wow, that's kind of weird, but this is kind of a club. I guess I kind of would like to be part of this club, but it just was kind of strange. But they could do that because, like, you're a mechanic, or you're a name in the industry. You're the guy. You're the expert. When you're the expert, and you hire all the people, well, you get to call the shots. Yeah, it looks like about 2.5 week turnaround on that. Okay, thanks. That's all. Right? You could afford to be that way, but retail has changed. I've had little jobs in retail before I started my career, and retail is totally different with the internet. I mean, it's just totally different. Yeah. You cannot rely on the things that can be easily sold on the internet. You must add value. And that value is the biggest part of what takes it forward. Now, our philosophy is start with service, and that's been their philosophy. You start with the service, then, they're not going to. First of all, you have the knowledge, and they're not going to mind paying $1,000 to work on your bike if that's what it needs. They're not going to bat an eye on that. And anybody else that comes in that's more of a novice, they're going to be like, please, whatever it takes. I just want to be fast. I just want to feel good. So we're looking for that type of customer. We're not really, frankly, interested in most of my friends here who are master cyclists and things like that. I mean, we're proud to have many of them involved actually,
right.
Because they want to support us, and and some of them are good ambassadors. But really, the thing that's going to drive this thing forward, in not just cycling, but all across outdoor sports, all across the way, is what do you bring? And one of the easiest things you can bring is community, and one of the best ways to bring community is give them something that they want. We thought, well, how about beer and coffee?
Right.
So we opened up the beer and coffee bar, which is now called the Tune Up, and we've operated that for 3 years as part of an overall remodel and rebranding. And so
will that stay in the new store?
It is. We're constructing it in a new store. It won't be opening right away. It'll probably be a few months out before we can get it going. But yeah, the plans have it, and I watched the bar side go up. The skeleton of the keg fridge is there. So,
well, tell me how this is going to look. So you guys, I've been to both your stores. I know this stores pretty well. Triathlon is a different animal than cycling, but at the end of the day, everybody's a cyclist. That's our one common thread, obviously. Mm-hmm. But what's it going to be like, the feel, when someone walks in who's a triathlete or someone who's a cyclist? Are they going to have a pretty obvious departure, or is it going to be intermingled? What is that going to feel like?
Let me back up into that in one way.
Okay.
Colorado Multisport's been in business now 14 years.
Right.
And while it started as a triathlon only, basically service, it was built essentially around two people that were trying to create a studio type atmosphere.
Yep.
In support of triathletes, and it was attached to a bike shop. Yep. At the time. So this obviously is going back 14 years, and over those 14 years, you build up a very loyal and wonderful customer base. My involvement has been 10 years of that. Well, actually, I was involved with Colorado Multisport as a customer, and ironically, I'm still a customer of Colorado Multisport, and I can explain that. But the store has definitely transcended that of just triathletes. In that, I've been living in Boulder going on 24 years. When I first moved here, I bought my first road bike, not knowing anything of what I was doing. I didn't know how. It sounded. I didn't know at all what I was doing, and I put myself out there. At the time to one of the local bike shops, and I can't say I was treated particularly well. It's not easy to put yourself in a very vulnerable place and position and say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what any of these parts are called.
Especially Boulder.
But I wanted to set myself up for success, and as well as these other people, and it didn't go particularly well, and nor did the acquisition of my first 3, 4, 5 bikes. In many ways, I was constantly being taken advantage of. I wasn't getting my questions answered. So when I got involved, my situation was very unique in that after competing in the Ironman World Championships in Hawaii in 2006, so coincidentally the same year as Colorado Multisport's opening, I had already been diagnosed legally blind at the time, and they said, hey, it's going to get worse. You're going to have to figure this out, but the life that you're used to living isn't going to be the life that you have. So I went on this quest. I went on a quest to meet as many people around the world that had lost their sight, that will share their stories. Inevitably, I put their stories into a book, and also in an effort to help other people cope with that world. But the one theme that I saw amongst all these people, and I met hundreds of people, Bill, all over the world, that had lost their sight due to one of these conditions that I have, as well as my brother, and you had to get out of the house. You really had to get out of the house. You had to stay in. And so here I was, knee deep into a career in the hotel, resort, spa, restaurant industry. And I love that industry. I still love that industry. And at the same time, here I was a customer of Colorado Multisport, and because there was nowhere else for me to go in town or like people. And we were so taken care of by those people. And you walked into that store, and at the time it was primarily Ryan Ignatz and Jeffrey Nenninger, and we shared stories. And it was in this 500 square foot single wide trailer.
Yeah.
If you had more than 3 or 4 people in there, you're going to have a panic attack.
Getting your aero bar fit. And
they made it work. And so it was just a wonderful environment, and you were cared for. And I loved it. And over the years, as I got into Xterra racing, I got closer and closer with Ryan. He basically taught me how to ride a mountain bike, which ended up being, and to this day, still a huge passion of mine. And we expanded into greater things. And my hope was to create a bigger ceiling for the people that were already so committed to this community, that we were already dependent on. And this obviously precedes the iPhone and all that stuff, which kind of came out around the same year and really took on. But that we did this. So the idea that and then kept growing. Well, it turns out there's a lot more people like me than not in this town. And while we may make the comment about a town full of superheroes, we really, really saw it, in this year with the amount of people that kind of came out of the woodworks and bought bicycles and stepped out. The sport of triathlon is such a spectacular experience, because it's the one sport that you could be a novice swimmer, biker, cyclist, runner, and be a good triathlete just by persevering. And it becomes very attractive to people that are trying to do something very special and unique in their lives, and because let's face it, all those sports, except for perhaps running, it could be very exclusive. Most people aren't going to go jump into a swim race,
Right.
With a bunch of elite swimmers or former collegiate swimmers or something. Cyclists, cycling, you can't just go jump into a bike race. It'd be horrific for many. Running, it's very attractive, but what happens into it, if you go into running usually as a novice and even do a marathon, it's a wonderful accomplishment, but it usually leaves people wanting something more. And whereas triathlon is extremely appealing, and that's what happened with me. Over the years of being able to serve that population has been beyond just a privilege. It's been an experience.
Well, Russ, talk about your client base a little bit, because clearly Michael's client base is probably a little more focused on a sport that has a lot of events that sort of drive it.
Right.
And your store, Michael, I know, without events, probably had a lot different feel this year.
Yes.
Without the people running last minute, Pro Bike Express, or shipping out, or whatever, all the frantics that go with an event. Maybe it was a smoother year. I don't know. But Russ, talk about your client base, and maybe also talk about, you and I talked right when COVID hit, and you were like, oh my God. And then everything shifted, and all of a sudden you were probably busier and made more money than you ever thought you could make in a bike shop.
I mean, not quite the end of that last sentence, but certainly it was a turnaround year after some years of struggle, and it would have been even better had our suppliers not failed at their ability to meet the supply demand, which they're still failing at.
Right.
It's a serious issue going into 2021. But that's another topic.
Yeah.
So in answer to the question, though, I guess of I'm not even sure which question you asked.
Kind of your base. So your talk about your clientele, but maybe
our clientele. Yeah. So our clientele. So Full Cycle. I'll start with the history of Full Cycle. It was started in basically the back of someone's garage. A guy named Tom Morrison. I think he lived off of Broadway and North, somewhere around there at the time. 1982. He started just buying and selling bikes. It was probably eBay way before the internet kind of thing. And he also owned a natural food store. So then he opened it up in this natural food store over on Pearl Street. And from about 82 to about 85, it operated within this co-op food store. And the co-op was kind of the general idea. Like they didn't hire mechanics; they let you use the tools. Mechanics came in and did it. And that's what Full Cycle was when it moved up to the Hill, in its first location for a couple of years, and then where it was. Tom Noyes, and with help from Chuck Sanson and a lot of other folks at that time, it essentially turned it in from kind of almost more of a hobby into an actual business where they sold things and made money, became a bike dealer, started hiring people, having an actual corporation, that sort of thing. Full Cycle was that way for years, from 1985 until 2005. That was Full Cycle. One location up on the hill, really funky hill vibe, very, very mountain bike oriented. Like they were definitely the pioneer side. The Gary Fisher and the very early RockShox forks. And in fact, we still have a lot of that kind of stuff lying around that we're trying to figure out how to appropriately curate.
Yeah.
Have some type of museum for that. But yeah, Full Cycle has broadly and probably ahead of anyone else really focused on mountain biking in Boulder, Colorado, and then naturally that was also kind of that kind of took over from what the original one was. We started more like a community cycles, and then we turned it into a Full Cycle, the mountain bike shop. So we've always had an element of the fixing anything for anybody and helping them find a part and that kind of stuff. So we're kind of a combination of that, and that's what we were all the way up until when it really the culture has pervaded it, and we're trying to keep the good parts of it, and the bad parts like giving away stuff for free. We're trying to get out of that habit.
Yeah.
It makes merging with Colorado Multisport really ideal because it's truly a complementary business. We have for years sent people to them, and they've sent people to us. Like triathlon, no, that's them. We'll work on a bike but really, we'd rather you go over there.
Yeah.
Although we certainly serve the needs a lot of it in these events, we'd rent bikes to them every year and everything else. But we're an all service shop. We do a lot of bike rentals. Our bike rentals, in fact, more than doubled this year over past years. There's reasons for that, but it's pretty impressive. They do bike rentals as well, so that fits well. They also rent wheels and wetsuits and other things. So the rental side of this is actually, going back to the whole services discussion earlier, rental is a very big piece of the services, right? And when you can provide your services without having to have this big cost of goods that you carry on your inventory every time. I came from the services business. That's how I made money. It's much better to find a way to bill your services out for this and pay your labor this. You're going to get much better margins than retail. And retail I watch retail just get worse and worse and worse. Retail, 40 to 45% is, if you're just purely retail, it's really tough to beat 40% gross margin. And if that's what you're working with, and then you got to pay people and you got to pay your rent, there's not very much left. So, whereas on the services side, it's a much different aspect, especially when you're talking about the rental side. It's really been a good thing for us.
How do you guys? So all of a sudden you're going to be this shop that, in lack of better terms, sort of caters to everybody. So how do you keep that focus that has made you successful? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and so you're a triathlete, Bill.
Yeah.
Okay. You wear many hats and so forth, but obviously I know you as a triathlete, and I know that you do other things. And triathlon in many families, take your typical family, somewhere between 4 or 5 people or more. You have one person that's the triathlete, and the rest of the family is supporting that person.
Right.
And they spend a lot of time in your store, because we're obviously not just selling them stuff. We're providing services. We're talking through things. We're coming up with solutions constantly. And so our daily scenario is that you're not just one person is coming into the store. The whole family's coming in. Well, as primarily a triathlon store, you're only appealing to that one person, where those other, many of those other people in the family are just kind of like, it becomes enough, and you really want to serve the whole family, and that's really what's going to happen here. So now you can eat your cake and have it too, right? and so forth. The other thing is that it's, while they're in there, getting a bike fit or a sweat composition test, which you've had done, or a plethora of other things, they start asking us questions about bikes that we don't typically have on the floor. Mountain, gravel, e-bike. Well, gravel bikes we've had on the store, and that also has a lot to do with it, because we have been, we obviously evolved into gravel bike the way everybody has, and obviously we could explain why we like that for triathletes, but road bikes as well. And we primarily stayed there in terms of our own inventory. But if you come in and you want to perhaps put your kid on a bicycle, well, we don't have that there on the floor. We have to special order it.
Or the e-bike's a great example, actually.
So we would send them over to the likes of a Full Cycle and so forth, and you start seeing this more and more, and at some point you start quantifying it. But there's something that feels kind of awful that you can't help that person right then and there, especially if they're there with their kid. Right. And you're answering all these questions about those bikes that you're not even going to sell them. And you just kind of feel sad that you don't get that pleasure of being able to see them on their bicycle and see it all the way through. Well, now we can.
Right.
And so if you could picture that under one roof, it's kind of a magical
We do more than
thing.
that. We've got great visualization, and we can also walk the space.
Yeah. So I used to work at a bike shop. We were in cyclery, and I was the try guy.
Remind me to ask you about them.
Okay. I was the try guy, and all the sales guys that were all over the mountain bike section, if somebody said the word triathlon, they just would point to me, and they would say, go over there. So are you kind of excited to be able to have that expertise in the Full Cycle when those people do come in, where maybe that's a shyer sales person?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be nice to have them there. There's another element that they bring, frankly, which is I think his staff in particular bring a little. They're a higher level of professionalism than you see around a lot of these places, and then that I frankly inherited when I picked up with Full Cycle, and so that's giving us a chance to up our game. Now we can. We're a bike shop, but we actually have people with master's degrees that are in key roles.
Yeah.
That's kind of unusual. So and they're applying it. It's not just they became a philosophy PhD, and then they became a wrench. I mean, so it's brings up that extra level, I think, that we frankly needed, and that's why I get very excited about starting to work with his team. But as Michael said, and he's been pitching me on this for the past year, is that all this additional business that they didn't get, they'll be able to get within Full Cycle. So to me, I look at that and I say, okay, yeah. So even if there isn't a triathlon this year, and I think there will be lots.
Yeah.
I still think this is a very good move for us, especially in light of the moving to the larger space.
So what will it look like in terms of, is it dual branded, or will you change the name?
Yeah, no. We'll not change the name. When we introduce the tune-up to our bar, we call it the tune-up at Full Cycle. Well, we're going to introduce Colorado Multisport at Full Cycle, and that's what it's going to be. Colorado Multisport is a big enough presence where it's going to be the sign and the logo are going to be on the building, and it's going to be quite obvious when you enter the store where all the tri activity is. You can go one way to rentals, go over here and have a drink, go over there get service, and then you'll just kind of see you'll see just you'll see triathlon there. You'll see the funny looking bikes over on the wall there. So and that's the CMS section. And so his staff will be kind of based in that general area.
Gotcha. With
the whole shop supporting it. So we're going to have one service department. A couple of people are going to happen to have really good experience, like Tom Hopper with tri bikes, but the rest of the guys are general, or in some cases for us we've got some really strong specialties in around suspension and full mountain bikes. In fact, we've recently taken on the ability to do in-house suspension service rather than using
type warranty.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's really cool.
So we're able to do that now. So getting back to just the way the two businesses complement each other very well. But no, I think the brand is extremely valuable. If we just washed it out, then who's gonna? That's there's no point of that. So there's a lot of goodwill. There's 14 years of the brand and the staff, right? Frankly, because the staff's been there just as long.
Yeah, you guys both have huge longevity with different things, and I guess I'm curious from a just pure size. What is it like? What size is the new store versus the two stores that you guys have now?
So how many square feet?
We're our box is about 3,500 square feet.
35.
I mean, but that's not what people see.
Right.
You know, they see, say, maybe, 2,700 of that.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, and we're about if you carve out 1,500 for the bar, we're about 3,500 as well.
Okay.
So it's about 7,000, and the new space is 8,400.
Oh.
So the bar again will be about 1,500 of that, and we'll have the same amount of space, but it'll be much more better efficient. We're also going to second level, so our office will be on a loft. We've got a loading dock where we can stack a bunch of bikes. So we've got a ton more capacity there, and of course the rent's going to be a lot less than the 2 rents we were paying before.
Sure.
So.
Well, talk about your philosophies a little bit, just the two of you, and how you complement each other, maybe where you see strengths, weaknesses that you can build.
Well, you actually just said it well, is that they do complement each other, and they're naturally synergistic. I mean, you're talking to two people who love their customers and love their staff, and recognize that anybody could open a box and fill a bunch of stuff in it. Well, these days supply is a little challenged, so it's not so easy. But there's just say let's go with that. Anybody can do that, but not everybody can deliver that level of service, and that's really where our mandates are the absolute same on that. We really are trying to deliver the best service that we can possibly do, and if we miss that, we're gonna do everything we can to make it right. And it's really it's a very natural feeling, it feels really good to do that. As we're just merging our staffs these days, and we're spending more and more time together, and we're finding that those synergies were just inherently there already.
Yeah.
And it's on top of it, both owners who perhaps naively went into this industry kind of came to the same conclusions independent of each other, and it's so everything just sort of naturally meshes.
Do you feel like you guys have skills though that you like to bring to the table that are really your strong? That you have certain things that as a business owner myself, there's always things that I don't love QuickBooks, so it always
I know
sits.
he doesn't.
He does.
Okay, because it just
I'm the
sits.
QuickBooks guy.
When I saw better, I used to. I mean, it's ironic because I have a business degree in finance, amongst other things, and it's. But the answer is, and Russ can speak to it, because there's a lot of things that I've come to truly appreciate. When over the past year, he asked me a lot of questions, and I didn't have answers ready at my fingertips for him, so I had to dig into that, and I started to learn a lot about my own business, and unfortunately, it was extremely humbling. A lot of things that I wish that I had done differently,
Sure.
and so it was really he pushing me into that world to think differently in terms of that. I've always been very, very geared towards the experiential side of things.
Yeah.
My goal was to have, especially as a triathlon store. I mean, bike shops in general are so intimidating, and it's heartbreaking that is in fact the case. That people are really, really frightened to walk in there, and our objective, and was something that all of us, that we try to do was to eliminate that completely. And the one area is that I want to say that we were successful, because I don't like to toot our own horn as much, but that was always my objective, was to try to build on that. And so I continue on that, and that's still what I want to do. I still love that connectivity and within a community. That's why I moved to Boulder.
I mean, you're a romantic. Is that fair?
Very, very
right?
much so.
You're romantic. You're probably more of an analytic kind of person.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably across the board. And one of the things that I think, to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be able to wear any hat at any time.
Right.
So, in fact, bookkeeping is the least is the least interesting part of my job.
Yeah.
but it has to be done. I have a bookkeeper, but I mean she's part-time, and it's you have to wear every hat in some form. What I'm driven is always have been is about building something, taking something and making it better. I mean, that's frankly all it is.
Yeah.
And that's been my mission in everything I've done, whether that was starting my own business in 1991 or other businesses that I took over and took forward. It's about taking something that's got some good raw material and taking advantage of current trends, and being very, very aware of the world and the direction it's moving, and taking advantage of that. And one of the things I'm most proud of, quite frankly, has been I've never cashed in so well on the fact that I keep up with the news very, very closely, to the point of actually, if I can't sleep, I'm listening to the BBC as trying to go back to sleep, right? So when this whole COVID thing started, it was like, oh, this is interesting. This is a cloud on the horizon. What's going to happen here? And it was like, okay, well, it could be we're just done. In fact, it kind of looks like that, actually. I think you and I chatted right around the time where it was like, oh, okay, well, this is going to be the end of that.
Yeah.
Well, it was easy. It was easy
Yeah.
to go down that road, and with respect to this year, I mean, let's face it. Anything that starts in China is going to impact the rest of the world, and we saw that. So, you enter your year. The funny thing about business planning in the cycling industry, and as well as in many industries, you're planning in July and August for the next year.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you can imagine what that looked like.
Yeah.
But
here's the thing, and I don't know if you noticed this yourself from your perspective, but I knew in January, I was pretty sure in January that we were going to go on some lockdowns. The reason I knew this is because I saw that the only way they were stopping this thing was through lockdowns in Asia. And then in Italy. And, I was hearing about all this in the middle of the night as I'm listening to the BBC. So I get up in the morning and think, this thing's coming.
Yeah.
And then, especially if you look through and you think, well, how are they going to present it? Well, they have to lock down. And how are they going to present it? They'll have to wear a mask. Well, that's not going to go so well in America.
Yeah.
I know I can't say I predicted that it would be the disaster it has become. But, boy, were we not ready for this in America. But some of us at least took a little bit of time in advance, looked around the world, and thought, okay. So obviously the first step was, oh, you got to close your restaurant. Okay. Even before I had a chance to decide to close the restaurant, my manager had told everybody they were laid off and sent everybody home that afternoon. I'm like, can't we just have a drink before we close?
Yeah.
And then the staff panicked a little bit too, and started selling off. Well, shoot, we ever sell what we can sell. Somebody comes in and suddenly somebody wants to buy road bikes. Oh, it's not going to be much of a year anyway. Let's just sell out all of our road bikes. And and so the one, before we caught up with it, the one thing we didn't have was road bike rentals this year, low-end road bike rentals. That was the beginning of all of a sudden, people are buying bikes. Holy cow. And so it was kind of like, well, thank God we closed the bar. I don't have time to worry about the bar right now, and just going in full effort, and then realizing that, wow, okay, well, we're going to run out of bikes, aren't we?
What have you seen on tri-bikes, Michael? From COVID standpoint, have they been going as fast as other bikes?
No, not this year. And I think we've definitely had sales and such, but we've always been we're an event. I think that we certainly could have done more if that was in fact what we're doing, but that's just not what the demand was. The demand was for just getting out on bicycles. And what was very special, and I actually was really loving that amongst triathletes this year, and I'm outwardly very proud of us, them. I am a triathlete among other things. Is that they went and explored. They created adventures for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
So they bought gravel bikes, adventure bikes, road bikes. That can ride on multiple different terrains, which to me are it's a great little mixture of the two. But and people were going out and creating their own events. They weren't limiting themselves to the typical swim, bike, run. They evolved into let's get out there and do stuff, and they explored.
Oh, yeah.
And it was, so that was their purchase this year. There's a finite amount of funds, and let's face it, people were scared. You had a lot of people that are out of work, a lot of people that are afraid of being out of work. Their whole lives had changed, and a tri-bike is a means to an end. It's the triathlon bike is there for the bike portion of the race to get you from point A to point B as fast as you can. Well, if there's no race to be had this year, what are you going to do with that? And so that kind of got pushed out there, and we certainly didn't feel great about trying to overly push that on people. So we evolved to the best of our ability to provide resources for alternatives to our existing customer base. But much like what Russ said, we ran out of supply as well, or couldn't meet the demand of even our own customer base for that. All intents and purposes, tri-bikes were in fact available most of this year. A good portion. There's a few random circumstances. There's a lot of great companies that we work with, primarily specialized in Cervelo, that had a decent amount of supply on the triathlon side. Should people want that, and they have continued to move forward with that, and we're very grateful for it. We're starting to see more and more interest in it as the year winds down. I think people are,
they see races coming. And
let's face it. I mean, the Daytona experience was exciting for all of us. It was just very, very unique in terms of what it was. But the creativity. I'm a big believer in the creativity of anybody in the sport. I believe that Lance from Without Limits, he's going to be extremely creative himself. He's going to figure this out. Somehow Ironman's going to figure this out, and because people want to get out there and do it. That's where their passions are. They thrive. It's therapeutic on many levels. So we're hoping to see as we move forward in this next year that people are going to be able to figure this out and get creative.
Well, let's wrap up a little bit here, and let's just talk about the timeline. So here we are, 3 weeks before Christmas. When does the new store? You're like, oh my God! When does the new store hopefully come online? Where are you at with your current stores?
Well, I've already answered 2 texts from my contractor while I've been sitting here.
Okay.
So we're in active build out right now. Frankly, it's going to be a real push to get it all ready in time.
What's your target date?
February 1st.
Okay. February 1st. So Groundhog Day. We can have a Groundhog Day grand opening.
It will not be a grand opening, but it will be an opening.
It's and then there's the little tricky part of it. January is always a challenge up here for businesses like ours. So it's a good time to be planning and building, and that's exactly what is going to be happening. But Full Cycle's open for business. We are going to be living over there during that transition period, and be ready and poised to open up. Hopefully in early February.
So Michael, your store it is still open right now, though.
Yes,
right?
it is.
And you have sales going on some of your things.
Correct.
When do you actually not open those doors?
So actually, this particular Saturday is the day that we're we had to arbitrarily choose it. We unfortunately had a lot of pressure from our landlord. It's a sad truth of our current state right now. The landlords have not been particularly supportive over businesses, especially local businesses, and unfortunately, it's something that the world needs to know is how most of us have been treated. So.
The local businesses are dying. Yeah. They're just dying. And restaurants especially, but retail as well. And you're absolutely right. Yeah. Some landlords see that and are committed to preserving it, but some are, whether that's a corporate, they only see the bottom line, or a faceless family trust, which is what we've had to deal with. They're not faceless. They just they're just all about just collecting money.
Yeah.
That's all. It's just it's a real shame, and we've allowed it to happen too. The way the state laws that we have, the tax laws here in this state have been bad. The Gallagher Amendment was repealed, which is good. That was one of the things that was causing commercial taxes to be high. When commercial taxes go, they go up like 5 times or 7 times the rate of residential taxes. So when they go up, it's not the landlord that pays that. They just pass that right along as a cost.
Right.
And so it's just you cannot pay $50, $60, $70 a square foot and expect to make money off of a $2 million business. Just isn't going to happen.
Yeah. So now you have the new location is over to exactly where?
We're going to be at 2355 30th Street. It's the old Vitamin Cottage location. Kind of cool. It looks like a little cottage.
Yeah.
And that most recently was a Halloween store. So I'm part of a partnership that purchased that building a year ago from the Vitamin Cottage people. And
it's. I mean, if people think of it as 30th and Pearl, I mean, think about what's happening there. You've got Whole Foods over there. You've got Google that's just building.
Well, Boulder Depot is kind of the neighborhood that it's being called now.
You get out for test drives a little easier out there, right?
There's a creek path right there. There's a lot of opportunities that we all wish that we would have had over the last 10 years that we now have. The fact is that we can now offer such a greater service. Like we just can't wait to get going. I mean, we're time is our thing. Unfortunately, we had to just choose a date, and because of the pressures, like I said, to move out of our space, it was kind of chosen for us.
Yeah.
And in a picture perfect world. But the fact of the matter is that we started this conversation with the desire to do something positive that's going to meet the needs, demands of a wider community that is just growing left and right, and be able to expand on those services, and hopefully by first quarter next year we'll be up and running and be able to deliver a product that I think we all dreamed we wish we could have had for a long time.
So 5 words or so, Russ. What are you most excited about with this merger?
Being in our own building with the business base of two businesses now instead of one, at a time when demand continues to be as high as it's going to be, and the pandemic is on the verge of ending. 2021 is, hold on to your hats. That's all I can say, because it's going to be a fun, wild, successful ride if things continue the way they look right now.
I think that's a good way to wrap this up. Thank you guys for talking, and look forward to more down the road, and we'll come do a tour one of these days.
Okay.
Thank you.